Welcome, everyone, to Post-PhD Directions, the podcast that helps early career researchers navigate the transition from academia to industry. So whether you're wrapping up your PhD or exploring new horizons beyond the lab or the lecture hall, we're here to share stories, strategies, and insider insights to guide your next steps. This episode is brought to you by Alma.me, a professional platform that offers career navigation to early career researchers. And today I'm really excited to be joined by my ever first Humanities PhD, Dr. Larry McGrath, a historian and anthropologist who has successfully navigated the path from academia to industry. He is currently a senior researcher at Amazon. Larry has also held a position at Meta. He's also currently a consultant where he helps PhDs navigate the transition into industry, focusing on PhDs with humanities and social science backgrounds. And through this consulting, he has actually helped over 40 academics finding roles at companies like Salesforce, Google, or Deloitte. And in this conversation, we will delve into how non-STEM PhDs can effectively translate their skills for industry roles, really a challenge that many PhDs face. And we will hopefully also talk about some strategies, how you can overcome them. And I'm really excited to have Larry. I don't think there would be any better person to talk about this today, who does it also professionally on the side. So welcome, Larry, to the podcast.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Elena.
Larry, so I actually found you on LinkedIn and I've read a post about how to translate your skills as a humanities PhD into business impact. And I thought it would be really cool to get you here because we do indeed, I think it's a struggle for STEM PhDs, but especially I think for non-STEM PhDs is sometimes a bit harder.
It's a struggle across the academy, but especially for those like myself from the humanities and social sciences.
We can delve into this a little bit more, why this is the case. But before we start, I would like to bring everyone on the same page. Larry, tell us a little bit about your academic background and where you are at today.
Well, where I am today is as the senior researcher for Amazon Prime Video, where I help set an agenda of the research projects and places in the world where we should conduct studies in order to better understand the customers of Amazon Prime Video and structure the look and feel of that platform as you would experience it on your mobile phone, your television, or your laptop. But my career didn't start there by any means. I think when I went off to college, I was convinced that I wanted to become a high-powered historian, write books that revolutionize the field and our understanding of the way the past presses upon the present. And so I went about a PhD in the history and anthropology of science at Johns Hopkins University. After that, I took a lovely postdoctoral position at Wesleyan University, a liberal arts college in the northeast of the United States, where all my students did the reading. I had a wonderful office. My students called me Professor McGrath. I was able to publish my first book there, Making Spirit Matter, which is a history of psychology and the neurosciences. But I reached a point in my career, and I think a lot of other academics do as well, where they realized that the picture we had created of ourselves, certainly as I did in college, no longer conformed with the reality that we were experiencing, or certainly the desires that we had come to have over time. And those desires for me were certainly shifting as I came closer to wanting a family, living in a place that I desire, having an income that allows me to enjoy the nice things in my life. And so I pivoted about a decade ago, and I'm happy to talk about that pivot. But as you alluded, Elena, the key task in that pivot was translating my experience and expertise from the language of academia into the language that recruiters and hiring managers could understand. And on the side of my day work at Amazon Prime Video, I do maintain a consultancy where I help PhD holders at all phases, from recent PhD recipients all the way through tenured faculty, translate their research profile into terms better understood in the business world.
I would actually like to dive into that a little bit because
Do it.
I mean now we're in your current job at Amazon, and maybe it's good to just start with an example. What kind of problems do you work on, and how does your background in the humanities come into play? So how did your background in your PhD and postdoc prepare you for your current job?
Humanists and social scientists have an incredible tool in their kit, and that is the tool of making distinctions. We can cut concepts with the most precise distinctions. I think of it as a conceptual knife that we use in order to understand either what's happening outside the company among our customers and competitors, or what's inside the company when it comes to our prioritization and frameworks. So let me start outside of the company. Any company has to sell something. In the case of Amazon Prime Video, that's subscriptions to Prime. And so I think a humanist is in a wonderful position in order to take all the potential subscribers in the world and cut them up into different segments. And that's a basic marketing exercise, but so often marketers use rather stale concepts in order to understand segments. And that's usually the concepts of demography, your age, your sex, your race, and so forth. What we as humanists can better understand is different segments, such as where in somebody's lifetime of engaging with movies, TV shows, and sports, which we provide on Prime Video, are we better tailored to help them satisfy their needs. We can look internationally and across markets and see, as an anthropologist does, the work of cultural variance in order to make sense of what people in India, for example, somewhere where I've spent a good bit of time and who are dependent more so on their mobile phones for entertainment, how people in India might have different needs than people in America and Europe who are instead accustomed to watching movies and TV shows at home on a television. So that's creating distinctions in order to understand customer needs outside of the company. When it comes to within the company as a researcher, a lot of what we do is create frameworks for establishing priorities. There's a lot of potential work that can be done in order to optimize the information architecture of a library as vast as Prime Video's. And I do think of what we do as researchers at Prime Video as somewhat like maintaining a library. And that means organizing all of the videos, TV shows, and sports that we have and setting priorities for the different tasks that we need to tackle, whether that's prioritizing, integrating AI capabilities into semantic search, whether it's prioritizing, for example, a new design language to better communicate with fewer words, how to make one's way through the Prime Video app. In any case, researchers like ourselves will establish frameworks for bringing in together the business needs, the feasibility, the technical requirements in order to establish what we should tackle first, second, and third as an organization across a year. And so it's in that way that creating distinctions, both for our customers outside the company and our frameworks within the company, that humanists or social scientists are really well positioned.
Okay, so Larry, I have to say I'm not so familiar, of course, with the humanities. Could you give me like a more tangible example, like a skill that you directly took from your PhD and apply now in every day? It's
Sure.
just me being
Sure.
a bit.
So, historian, so say if you pursued a PhD in history, the fundamental question that you ask is, how do things change over time? Do things stay the same in a given period, or do they undergo rupture? Is there continuity or difference? That is the basic historical question. And so you can use that tool right there to understand whether customers' needs remain the same when we introduce new technologies such as AI into organizing and personalizing our content recommendations, or whether there are new needs among our customers created by technological transformations on the platform. There's a very basic example.
Thank you. That's really exciting. I guess this is a skill set you need in most industries, or?
I think that there are a lot of industries that require domain expertise. I've worked in the life sciences with pharmaceutical and medical device makers before, and there was a lot of physiology that I needed to learn in that domain, a lot of understanding of how imaging technologies work, for example, when working on MRI scans. But apart from that domain expertise and content knowledge, which is also a kind of knowledge that humanists and social scientists have in their respective fields, there's also the formal knowledge when it comes to our critical interpretive methods as researchers. And those are incredibly valuable, as you were suggesting, Elena, across domains, no matter what the industry.
Okay, I see you were both Meta and also Amazon classify as tech. Do you think that's a good sector in general for humanities PhD to pivot in, or because I guess life science, as you said.
We could talk about the different industries where humanities PhDs are especially valuable. That has been the case for tech over the past decade for a number of reasons. First is the growth of big data, by which I mean tech companies' collection of numerical log data about users has created a complementary need for analysts like myself with a humanities and social science background to interpret thick data. That is, to pose questions about motivations, context, variance that might otherwise go hidden in that big data. I mean, let me give you an example. What a company like Meta that vacuums up more data than could probably fit on this earth. There are certain questions that arise, such as when we were looking at Brazilians' engagement trends and noticed that in some households in places like Rio de Janeiro, there were 18, 19, 20 hours a day spent on the Facebook app. And this was just an anomaly that our software developers and engineers couldn't explain. But when we went on the ground and spent time in people's homes, as anthropologists like myself are trained to do, observe users in their natural habitat, what we soon found was that account sharing on Facebook was quite difficult, especially in a city like Rio de Janeiro with limited Wi-Fi capacities in certain neighborhoods. And so you would have a mother spending 2 to 3 hours on Facebook, sharing then the account with a son or daughter who would spend a few hours. And what appeared as a single user from our log data was in fact multiple users. And we came back to the headquarters and said we need to make account sharing, especially offline, much easier in a place like Brazil. That's an area, an example where our thick data complement the big data.
Well, I love this. It's so cool. So you actually travel and you see what they do and you understand, I guess, user behaviors, and then you bring it back to the business. I love this, Larry. So now it sounds like, listening to you, it sounds very simple, but when we go back to the time when you made your own transition, how did you, Larry, learn to speak the language of industry, and how did you go through that process? Because I think this is really something a lot of PhDs in the humanities struggle. They may read, a job ad and they think I don't know most of these things, but at the end of the day, there's just a difference in terms that are being used. So yeah.
It can be incredibly intimidating at first. There is a whole jargon to business speak that a lot of us pursue a career in academia in order to avoid in the first place. And so the prospect of coming back to it after having immersed ourselves in literally other languages, because humanists are expected to do work outside of just English, at least in America, but also the language of criticism, of interpretation, of gathering around a seminar table and arguing about the nuances of the text is something totally unlike what goes on in the business world. And I'd recommend for academics in search of a more fulfilling and better compensated career outside of academia to approach business language as a research project and to not only read about it, but to ask a lot of questions, to do informational interviews, or as normal people call them, conversations. And that was the case for me about a decade ago when I bought 50 people coffee and asked them about their jobs. And it's really crucial, I think, not to ask fluffy, mediocre questions like describe the culture of your company, but instead to ask about the small quotidian details of work. And that was appropriate for me because as an anthropologist, we observe the minute behavior and technologies that surround people in our everyday contexts. And I wanted to know things like at work, do you write words in a Microsoft Word document? Do you write numbers in an Excel spreadsheet? How many emails do you write in a day? Really understanding what's involved at work in order to deflate those abstract and strange terms into concrete practices that we're familiar with is, I think, how we dispel a lot of what can otherwise seem intimidating about business.
I absolutely love this. And I love the way you phrased it. Like normal people would call it a conversation. We call it informational interviews. I recommend them so much, Larry. And I'm loving this when I have people who actually made the transition and they are in business and they say the same. When you ask the right question, you can pick up so much. So you say talking to a lot of people, understanding and going from abstract more to detailed. I can see that a lot of PhDs are sitting there and thinking, okay, what are some questions one could ask to get there? And I think it's amazing that you say approach it from the researcher's mind, right? And you're perfectly fit to do that.
I'd suggest three things. The first is to ask about projects. The project is the basic unit of work life, and it's consonant between academic work and business work. Around a project, a team assembles. For a project, tools are used, and any project has a series of milestones over time and an audience to whom it is delivered. Focusing questions on a project, I think, is really key in order to understand what's involved with work. The second is to not ask about any project. As a rule, especially as a virtue of good research, we don't want to engage people's imaginations. We want to engage their memories. So ask about the most recent project, or even what part of the project did you work on yesterday? A lot of people, when conducting interventional interviews, that is, the one who is being interviewed, indulge in a lot of self-aggrandizement and see it either as something to ignore or perhaps as an opportunity to sound like a rock star. And we can avoid that by asking about what is going on today or yesterday and not what's going on in general. The third thing I'd suggest is to ask that interviewee where else they would want to work. Most work sucks to a certain extent. Not all work is lovely. There's a good bit of shit that we have to deal with in order to get a salary in return. So indulge people's fantasy just a little bit in order to see what else is out there. One of the most intimidating things for academics as they transition is not just understanding a new language, nor even coming to have a glimpse into the processes involved in work that they've never done. There's also the fact that they don't know the industry landscape, what companies are out there, and therefore what opportunities are available for employment. I've found that one of the best ways of uncovering potential employment is by asking people, where else would you like to work?
Thank you so much, Larry, for sharing. It's so cool when I listen to you. I can see the way you approach it. You really approach it because you have this research background. Like me coming from the STEMs, I never really thought in these spheres. It's amazing because I really get a little bit of a glimpse what humanities
Well, that's
PhDs
nice that
actually
you
do.
say that. I'm glad that I reveal something of a humanities background in my very speech.
100. I mean, for me, Larry, 100%. I have never heard anyone explaining it in this way and why you should ask about a specific example from yesterday. So thank you for sharing this. If I can ask you, what do you think is the biggest struggle most PhDs have when they come to you? What do you think? Do they feel like underqualified? Do they feel like they have no real strategy on how to transition? I'm just wondering, what is one thing that you think we could add a lot of value if we
Yeah.
dive into it?
Academics come to me at all phases of the academic continuum. Recent PhD recipients, postdocs, assistant professors who don't yet have tenure, and I've even worked with a number of full professors with endowed chairs. And I reject a lot of potential clients when they don't know what they want. A lot of academics come to me with a very clear idea of what they don't want. They don't want low compensation. They don't want a toxic work environment. They don't want geographic immobility. They don't want the tiny readership that cares about their writing. But when it comes to articulating a positive vision of what they do want instead as an alternative, they're clueless. And it's a whole lot harder to move toward a goal than it is to move away from something bad. Helping articulate what that positive vision consists of in its most basic terms, what you value. Do you value more money? Do you value fewer work hours? Do you value more autonomy over your research agenda? Being clear about just what it is you want, I think, is the most challenging task. And like many things in life, it's a whole lot harder to figure out what you want than to get what you want. Because once you establish what you want, then that clarifies the pathway in front of you.
I absolutely love this is hard with yourself and understand what do you value and understand where you want to go. It's like your North Star and it guides you. And I like how you said it. It's harder to uh, understand what you want than to get there, because I think once you have the clarity where you want to go, you
Yeah.
can focus all your energy in a direction.
And clarity about what work, among other fora in life, are going to offer you. There are lots of things that I enjoy doing. I don't expect work to give me all of them. And that was certainly the realization that I encountered a decade ago when I left academia, at least as a source of employment. I maintained a foot in academia, reading the books that I wanted, staying on top of the debates that I found important and animating, and even continuing to publish. I've managed to contribute to 3 volumes since leaving academia, but I realized that I don't need my work to provide those things for me. I instead create a contract with my employer where I give my employer my expertise and my time, in other words, my labor, and my employer gives me compensation, which is to say financial security. And outside of that, I can still indulge in many of the things that academia provided for me, just not in the poor terms of contractual employment that reign in colleges and universities.
I think it's a very nice reframe. It's a nice way of thinking about some people, they go out and they think work has to provide everything, right? They have to find all sorts of fulfillments in work. But I think it's important to recognize that whatever you value, not everything has to be found within your professional life. I mean, you still have a private life and you have a life outside of work where you can, as you say, engage in a lot of activities that actually fulfill you or make you feel like this is what I want to do with my time. So I think that's really important because sometimes we chase, I have to do something and work has to be fulfilling all the time and it has to be fun. And I think it's just not the reality. I think the reality is that there are certain aspects where you can say, I can live parts of me, but maybe not all parts of me that actually fulfill me as a human being. But then I can find them maybe outside. I guess you're a very good example because I guess the consultancy that you do is a part of you that you maybe is helping. I don't know which value you live in that work, but I can see that it's a completely different work as compared to what you do at Amazon, right? So you're probably living a different angle of Larry through the consultancy and helping others.
It's certainly a different angle. It fulfills certain political ambitions of mine, which is to encourage more academics to see their value and realize it outside of the academic labor market so as to, with any luck, decrease the size of that labor pool in order to make it harder for colleges and universities to justify such low wages. That is a pursuit of mine that is completely independent of work at Amazon Prime Video. But if I may add, the meta point, especially in the humanities, that work for much of the humanities histories has been pursued outside of regular employment. When the historians of the humanities look back on the era in America and Europe after World War II up until the first century and see so many humanities PhD holders pursuing tenure track jobs, that period is going to look like a quick blip. far more often the poets, philosophers, and religious thinkers who have been inquiring into the nature of human motivation and the structure of human society have not been employed in colleges and universities.
Okay, cool. That's a great insight. Thank you so much, Larry. But what I also picked up, so for many, I think it's something I just wanna ask because I feel like, and I guess you touched on this partly, when we leave academia, I think some PhDs feel like it means like leaving their publishing career behind.
Right.
But that's not necessarily the case. And I know that because, from our chat before, that you still published while you kept publishing, or you're still publishing while you're in industry. Could you share a little bit about your own experience, how you continued these activities after leaving academia, and how you found opportunities to publish or contribute to these things that I guess are another part of Larry that you want to live and bring into the world?
I'm speaking right now from Quebec in Canada, taking a break from the International Conference on Communications. So it's a fitting question to address. I'm presenting here some of the work that we've done for Amazon Prime Video, ethnographic work where we go into people's homes and diagram the architecture of the rooms in which customers engage with a living room television, their voice assistant, their mobile device, and so forth. That's the first kind of scholarship that you can produce, is finding research opportunities, or for whatever reason the business world likes to call thought leadership, that allow you to broadcast for a wider audience beyond your employer the kinds of innovations that you're doing at work. There are a lot of companies out there who want to hire academics not only because we bring incredible value to the product development process, but also because we help disseminate and highlight the innovation for the company. That's one way of doing it right there. A second way of doing it is to pursue scholarship that addresses technological change and the social context of your own work. I mean, that's something that I'm doing right now. Anthropology of AI is the name of the edited volume that I have coming out with Routledge at the end of this year in 2025. And I write about the way in which conversational AI technologies are affecting a lot of the ways that humans are interacting with computers. And that's a basic anthropological question that I find interesting on its own, and it animates the work that I do trying to study the variance of humans' interactions with technology across the world. There are a lot of organizations that cater to business professionals for us to share that kind of work. I'm actively involved in EPIC, Ethnographic Praxis in Industry Conference, and a lot of academics who are in colleges and universities right now love to have their conference buddies to present work and travel to different conferences, and they just don't know that those also exist in the business world, and they aren't just trade shows. They are places where we present working papers as well as polished work as well. I'll wrap up by saying the third place where scholarship can be pursued, and quite a bit easier in the business world because we have more free time after we shut our computers come 5 to 6 p.m., as well as financial security. The last place where we can do that is wrapping up the loose ends of all of our writing from grad school and whatever professional appointment we had. It might be the case for other humanities and social science scholars listening in, but if you were anything like me, coming out of grad school, and certainly after my first faculty position, I had so many finished yet unpublished writings. And with a little bit of massaging, I was able, in my free time and with my better compensation, to take them to publishers, whether those were for university presses, for books, or for journals, and pitch them anew. And I think pitch them with a fresh, motivated enthusiasm that I had no longer as a jaded academic, but somebody who was enjoying the novelty of a new industry. And so you don't have to abandon all of that wonderful work that you once pursued.
Thank you so much, Larry. I'm really fascinated with the work you do. When I listen to you the last couple of minutes, I'm just thinking it feels like you've created a life, because I always say, we all create our own lives. Nothing happens. It has to be intentional. And it feels like you have created a life for yourself where you can still write, where you can do these things you're passionate about. You can bring in your research, but you can also help others succeed. And it's amazing to listen to you. And it's just amazing because I think you're a great role model of how one can live life, stepping outside of academia and still having this scholarly work and create it yourself.
It's very generous of you. I love hearing you talk about uh, the multiple Larrys as if I'm an onion with layers that you pull back through the course of this conversation. I mean, I don't mean to look at it all through rose-colored glasses. I do find it challenging to locate the motivation for writing when I don't have a journal deadline or a tenure committee whom I need to please, when it's entirely on my own time, either in the evenings or the weekends. Finding that energy can be trying, but there's no sense of resentment that one should have toward academia when pursuing a career afterwards, much less when pursuing scholarship from an alternative space of employment. I make a big deal about including my business affiliations in my writing, whether that's Meta, a consultancy, Amazon Prime Video, or who knows, wherever I might be in the future, so as to lend visibility from the multiple places and institutions where scholarship can happen. It doesn't have to be just academia. And it becomes, I think, all the easier to do that without resentment toward academia when we realize that it didn't work out. We chose not to continue employment in academia because of the basic economics. And those are factors well beyond our control. It's not that our ideas didn't have the right following, or, God forbid, my scholarly profile didn't merit the right recognition. Academic institutions are as dependent, if not more so, on the forces of capitalism. The fact that we pivot elsewhere in order to pursue both compensation and scholarship, I think leads to a better life.
I love this. I have one follow-up question of curiosity. Because based on what you said, do you ever have like PhDs coming to you and they feel like a failure that they didn't make it?
Oh,
And
absolutely. Absolutely. I felt like that. I felt like that for probably the first 3 years of my post-academic employment. Like I was sold, uh, I was sold the wrong bill of goods. I had been deceived, as much as I do think that universities could do a better job presenting early on in the graduate process what the salary prospects are for their degrees. But I thought that I didn't make as persuasive arguments as I did about the history of science, or perhaps that I didn't attach my scholarship to the most fashionable trends. But yeah, I felt a lot of failure. And then over time, I started receiving so many academics, especially whom I knew, and in some cases who used to be my professors, asking for advice about finding a way out. And that helped me realize that no, I didn't make the wrong move at all.
thank you, Larry. What would you say if someone feels like they're failing because they have to leave, they didn't manage to get the funding? Do you have some words of encouragement what life will be or what life can be after when they're in this weird transition phase? Is there a tip or something that you can give these PhDs?
That there's going to be a lot more failure.
Okay. Okay.
Here's the liberating thing, Elena. Here's the liberating thing. My work for Meta, for Amazon Prime Video, for elsewhere has failed many times. There have been so many products and projects that I have invested research labor into, that I have prioritized and advocated my teams working on, that have failed. But at no point has our personhood failed. That's just the natural cycle of the business world, where you're paid to pursue things, some of which fail, others might momentarily succeed, but rarely at all in the long run. Disidentification from work is one of the incredible things that post-academic employment affords. I remember investing my heart and soul, my very selfhood, into every word that I would write on a page of a manuscript, every selection of the right footnote to include so as to properly cite my sources, to the point that I would look at a calendar and see every single open day in the future as a potential workday. Disidentifying from that and coming to see the failure of my projects as not a failure of myself is, I think, one of the incredibly liberating aspects about working beyond academia.
Thank you so much, Larry. It was really interesting for me to learn more about the humanities. Honestly, since I mostly speak with STEM PhDs, I really enjoyed this conversation. I learned a lot myself. And
Well,
I
I'm
hope
so happy, Elena, that you're giving a platform to the humanities and social sciences so that we can share what we do in the business world. It's just so mysterious and hidden, I think. There just aren't enough people from my line of work sharing stories.
100%, Larry. So I really, when I found you on LinkedIn, I thought I definitely need to talk to you because we have a lot of PhDs from the humanities approaching us. We're mostly working with STEM PhDs because this is what we know. So if anyone out there is in need of help, Larry would be the person to go to if you're from the humanities or social sciences, because the transition really can be really tough and sometimes very frustrating. And it's great to know that there people out there helping. And with this, I just want to say thank you to everyone who tuned into this episode. Thank you, Larry, so much for sharing your knowledge so generously with everyone out there. Do not forget to check out the episode description and any links I will put in Larry's LinkedIn. He creates really amazing content on LinkedIn, so give him a follow or connect with him. I will also link your website if someone is interested about the work Larry does. And yeah, if you found this helpful, please share this with fellow researchers and consider to subscribe so you never miss an update. And if you liked the episode, please leave us a 5-star review. It's really the easiest way to support the podcast. Thank you so much again, Larry, and I wish you all a nice evening, day, whatever, whenever you listen to this episode.
It's been really lovely talking with you, Elena.
Thank you, Larry.